Hey everybody! So I'm Jingjing Comics, a webtoon artist who makes cozy slice of life comics. So today I'll show you how I make a webtoon episode from start to finish.
So chapter 1, Teenager Body Image Issues, episode 1, and then I scripted everything out like it is a movie.
Okay, so here I'm going to show you how I usually shade my characters for the comic Inner Bakery. Basically here I have a layer set to multiply, and I have a line art layer. I have a folder, and with the folder it has all of these things that I've already done. So there's the cloves layer, the cake layer, the hair layer. So the base color for everything in this character has already been kind of colored in by me. And I'm going to show you how I set this all so that it's more of a cohesive shade. So I would go to the line art layer here, grab the magic wand tool. I select everything outside of the line art layer. So here's like the line art, right? So selecting everything outside, I go to select and invert selected area. You could also do Control-Shift-I. That's going to invert the selected area, so it's only selecting the inside of the line art. And then I would go over here to folder and click on this create layer mask, little white cube with the black circle in the middle. Click on that and you see that this section here is a little bit off because it's when I drew the line art, probably there was a hole in there somewhere. So I'm going to take my pen. I'm going to click on the layer mask and I'm going to color in the stuff that is not selected. Yeah, so this should all be selected by now. Now I'm going to go up to multiply layer. I'm going to attach this. So it's called clipping mask. You can clip to layer below. On Clip Studio Paint, it goes, there's a little button up here. You can click that. You can also click, I think, Alt on your keyboard. Yeah. And then you're going to go to the paint bucket tool here. Refer only to editing layer. And I usually click this kind of like darkish red color. And I click it on the multiply. And as you can see, everything else is now covered in this dark red color. And there's also parts to the character here that you can actually make better. So like the clothes, you can see some parts of it are white. If you want, you can go in and fix that. I'm just going to leave it for now because I'm doing a demo. And now I'm going to go up here to multiply. In the layer selection, you can choose what type of layer you want. So right now it's set to normal. I'm going to click on multiply. And then I'm going to set the opacity to like 50%. And I usually do another layer mask for the multiply layer. Click on the layer mask. And then I'm going to get the eraser tool, click rough. And I usually pick like a big eraser tool and then I just erase. So this is kind of like erasing the negative stuff that I don't want. So where I don't want the shadows to be. So multiply is where the shadows are. I'm just erasing parts where I do not want the shadow. Also, I must give credit where credit is due, and this kind of shading technique is where I learned from Line Illustrations, and they're really amazing, so definitely check them out. But here I'm just going to go and erase stuff. I'll put the link in his YouTube channel below in the description, and you just kind of think about where the light source would be. In my case, I usually have the light source at the top left corner, so that's where the light source would be. This is where I'm going to delete, kind of like inverse shade everything else. And so that it's more clear. Okay, so up to this step, I then go in and grab the soft eraser tool, and then I make it to like a 7, and then I go in and I kind of erase some clear lines out, because I don't want every part of my shadow to be so clean. I like it to be a little bit blurred on the sides of some parts, so especially the neck area, I like to like erase so that it's a little bit of a slow transition into the shadows. Looks really nice once you get to you go through all of the shadows, and you can leave some clean edges and you can leave some harsh edges. Usually for the skin, I like to leave it like a little bit blended. Yeah, so this is what I usually do. And then I go into my skin. I add myself a blush. And all the girlies out there, you know we need to add the blush. Okay, and then we're going to clip this blush layer to the skin. And then I usually click on this color here. And I go into the airbrush tool, 17. And then I just kind of brush in the blush. Okay, so maybe something like this. I go across the cheeks, and I also add a little bit on the fingers and a little bit on the neck, depending on how I feel like it. Okay, and then I go into the line. I make a new layer here, and I add some highlights. So for highlights, I go for the whitest white, and I go with the G pen, maybe 7. And I'm gonna make this larger, and I just add highlights on the cheeks, highlights on the nose, highlights on like the lips area, and then I would go back into the multiply layer, and I would add a shadow under the nose here. So to add the shadow, you just need to use the pen tool and then click and just draw it in like you would normally. And that's usually what I do. And then I just add some more detail and stuff. But here you go. Now we're going to move on to the last step, which is basically adding some text. And for the text, I'm going to grab like a bubble tool here. So let's say here we have Clip Studio. There's a bubble, like a balloon tool, rounded balloon. Usually I go into the text and I add some sort of text. So I use a text called Action Man, and I use 10 font because it's easy to read for Webtoons. Use black, and then we're going to say, here, have this cake, or something like that. So I'm going to type here. Okay. Here, this is for you. And then that's our font. So now I lock this text layer. I lock it. And then I go into the balloon, and then I change all the colors to be black so that there's a line around the balloon. And then I click and drag, and I make a balloon. And then I move this text up to the top, and if I like to move the balloon, I move it down a little bit. So it's like this. And then I add a tail to the balloon. So over here in the tool properties, you can do balloon tail. And I click on the balloon. I move it to wherever I want it to be pointed, and I press enter on the keyboard. So it makes a nice clean line, like a tail for the balloon. And now here it's blocking, so that's blocking the character. So I'm going to move it up a little bit. And if you don't want it to be within that little frame, you can move it outside of And that's how I make a Webtoon episode. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next.